Hi guys, welcome to week 4 of cooking with Blue and Ellen. We did jam last week. I said that we were going to do scones this week, so we're going to set ourselves a challenge and we're going to try and make scones within about 6 or 7 minutes, not including cooking time. Okay, so let's crack on. What you're going to need, we're using an American recipe today, and the reason we're using an American recipe is it's slightly different from British recipes that sometimes that you'll find, and we're going to go through some of the finer points about what makes it different. One of the key things you'll find is different is they use cups, and cups are generic, so it doesn't matter what cup you use, provided you use the same cup throughout the whole recipe. I think chefs like to think that when it comes to a cup, we're using roughly about a small coffee cup, like you'd get in a coffee shop. So I found something similar here to use. Obviously, don't use huge kind of big mugs because you'll end up with a lot of mixture. So a coffee cup. You're also going to need some baking powder, some self-raising flour. Now in some recipes that's called all-purpose flour. If you ever see all-purpose flour, it means self-raising flour. We have some butter, some sultanas, some sugar, some salt and a little bit of milk. And then for the utensils, we've already talked about the cup. You need a mixing bowl, a tablespoon, a wooden spoon and a teaspoon. We've already disinfected the side. I've already washed my hands, so let's crack on. So the first thing we need is 2.5 cups of the flour. So that's 1, 2 and a half, just a bit more. Okay, we're then going to add the baking powder, which you want 1 tablespoon, so 1 level tablespoon, there we go. 1 teaspoon of salt, there we go. And then 1 cup of sugar. About half there, so just put that up. Okay, that's good. Maybe just a little bit. Keep an eye on when you're using cups, keep an eye on the levels inside. I added a bit more then because I was aware that when I was putting it in, there wasn't quite enough it wasn't quite to the top when you were doing the sugar. So obviously try and keep your measurements the same. Right, it's important that we put all the dry things in together. So we're going to add a handful of sultanas as well. Not that much, that's fine. A few more. A few on the floor, but the dog will get those, so I don't have to worry about that. Okay, so that's the dry mix done. We're now going to add 8 teaspoons of butter. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Important you remember there that that's teaspoons, not tablespoons. Again, try and keep them roughly the same as you're putting them in. And then we're just going to put in a 1 tablespoon of milk. Okay, so now what we're going to do is bring all this together, and it's going to be a bit like when you make pastry, so it needs to look a bit like fine golden breadcrumbs, I think. So when we mix all this together, you're bringing it through the ends of your fingers, so you're rubbing the mixture through your fingers using your thumb. Okay, so we've got this to the consistency that we want. If you have a look, it's kind of like breadcrumbs, isn't it? Can you see how lovely and fluffy that is? Can you see that? That's lovely. Any bits that are in there that aren't coming up, give them a shake and you'll find all the lumps that are underneath come to the top, and then you can just pick those off. Okay, so the tablespoon of milk that we used before is actually taken from a cup of about 2/3 of milk, so we're going to add that. There we are. This is where you use the wooden spoon, and we're just going to bring that round until you've got really a it's all kind of mashed together, and it's all coming together like a piece of pastry. You'll know when this is done because it will just start to pull away from the sides, and it will just form a ball, a nice clean ball. You'll get to the point actually where it's probably better to use your fingers, to be honest. So we're almost there. You can see that's beginning to, a bit like when we made the pasta and the pastry. Do you remember it cleaned the bowl? And it's cleaning the bowl now nicely. You can see that's coming away. So we're just going to take that off. And we're going to use our hands at this point. You don't want to do too much mixing. You want to keep it as loose as you can. The more you mix it, the tougher it's going to be. And that's kind of the same really with pastry too. And again with the pasta, you fold it so many times and you saw it sort of stretching out, or you see the softness of the pastry, but the more you work it, the tougher it gets. So with scones, you really don't want to work it very much at all. So I would say that's done now. We're going to put that on there, move that aside. Going to add a little bit of flour here. Now, scones need to be very thick. That's way too much flour. So we're just going to take some of that, put that in the bowl here. Okay, so you want a good dusting of flour. Going to get this ball on. Now some people roll, some people push down. The recipe that I'm following recommends pushing down. It depends how uniform you want yours to be. So they've got to be about 1 inch or 1.5 inches thick. So I would say that's 1.5 inches thick. Now you can use a number of things to cut them out. You can cut them yourself and make different shapes, heart shapes or whatever. They're not going to keep the exact shape because of the sultana in them. So whatever shape you make, they'll be roughly that shape. We're just going to go for round ones. I haven't got a cutter to hand, so what I am going to use instead is a glass. And we're just going to use that to cut. Here we have our prepared tray with some greaseproof paper on it. We're just going to lay those out. Like so. Make sure you give about 1 inch or so in between each scone when you put them on the tray. That's because when they rise and get bigger in the cooking process, they don't then all kind of cook into one another. So give them plenty of space. Okay, these are looking good, guys. And what I'm looking forward to most is using the jam that we had last week with this later. Haley's already been out and bought some clotted cream, so we're going to have some of that. The bits that are left, just mush them together again, very loosely. Give them a push down, again to about 1.5 inches thick, something like that. Yeah, good. One there, and then we should get the last one out there. Perfect. I'm going to pop that on there. We then need to brush it with a tiny bit of milk. Just put a little bit of milk in there. So, somewhere we have a good pastry brush. And then we're just going to give these a good covering of milk on top, like that. Okay. Lovely. You don't want scones to go too brown. You've got to kind of keep an eye on them. The cooking time is about 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, but keep an eye on them because each one sort of rises slightly differently. As you can see, this one is ever so slightly bigger, so it might take a little bit longer, this one. But if there's one thing we've got at the minute, it's time. Okay, so let's get these into the middle of the oven. Fantastic. And that gives me just enough time to clear down so Hayley doesn't shout at me later. Okay, so a word on scones. Scones are different wherever you go. The Devonshire people have got a different way of doing it, the Cornish have got a way of doing it, the Yorkshire folk have got a way to do it. Everyone's got a different way to do it. Is it a scone? Is it a scone? There's a real thing around making scones. Should you put the jam on first? Should you put the cream on first? There's all this kind of colloquial kind of like regulation around scones. I don't like to get drawn into all of that, so I just like to make scones that I like. So I like to have my scones with butter, a bit of jam, and then some cream put on top. So that's what we're going to do. So when you put them in the oven, you put it on to begin with for about 220. You might have to turn it down after about 10 minutes. What we did was we had to take everything out halfway through because we put our, they were rather big, the ones that we made, and they've just begun to kind of, as I said, to sort of go into each other. So we had to take them out halfway through and just put them on some separate trays. But as I said, keep an eye on them, and those kind of mistakes you can just keep on top of quite easily. So let's have a look and see how they're getting on. Okay, so they're much bigger. So these are huge, huge ones. Okay, so these are a lot wider rather than quite deep. So I think probably if I was going to do these again, I'd probably make them a bit deeper. And I think when we said we needed it an inch and a half thick, I was probably more on an inch. And I think we probably needed that extra half an inch to give it a bit of height. But they are nice and they are big and they've risen and they've done well. So let's do the next bit. So we're going to take the biggest one here. Cut it in half. You would usually wait for this to cool, but in this instant, the boys are about to go off across the field to take the dog for a walk. So we're just going to prepare them one now quickly. So again, your mum or your gran or somebody may have a better recipe or a different idea about how it should look, or what should go on first or what should be on it, and that's all absolutely fine. Some people like to put on a lot of butter, for example. I like to put on a little. So we've got our jam that we made last week. I'm just going to open that. I haven't actually opened it since last week. Yes, looking good. So I'm going to put some of that jam on. Nice. Apply it nice and thick. Spread it over. And again. Okay. This is very nice, by the way, with a nice cup of tea and a couple of cucumber sandwiches. Let's get that on there. And then clotted cream, nice and thick always. And some on there like that. As you can see, our philosophy here is cooking made easy. Not necessarily perfect, but but certainly easy. Okay, there we go. Okay, boys, want to come and try the scones? Tell us what you think. Whoa, wait. Nice? Okay, there we go. Scones. Made easy.